Star Trek has been running for over 5 decades. In that time, it has introduced hundreds of ships, stations, and structures. But here's the thing most fans get wrong. They think they know how big these vessels actually are. They don't. The numbers on this list will break your sense of scale before we're halfway through. And the entry at number 1 is so large, it was deliberately excluded from every size comparison video ever made about Star Trek. We'll get to why. Here is every largest vessel in the Star Trek universe, ranked and explained. Number 15. Enterprise J, Universe Class, 3,219 meters long. The Enterprise J belongs to the Universe Class, the most advanced Starfleet designation ever recorded. It comes from a possible version of the 26th century, 200 years beyond even the far future of Star Trek's main timeline. The ship appears briefly in Star Trek Enterprise when Captain Archer is pulled forward in time during the temporal Cold War arc. Here's what's strange about it. The exterior was never actually shown on screen. Only a computer graphic in the background. A full CGI model was built, and from that model, the measurements were confirmed at approximately 3,219 meters long and 2,650 meters wide, nearly 5 times the length of the Galaxy-class Enterprise D. Budget constraints canceled every planned exterior battle sequence, a ship that exists in the future of the future, and we still haven't seen what it looks like from the outside. But at 3,219 meters, this is actually the smallest entry on the list. The next vessel is already almost twice as tall as it is long, and by the time we reach number 1, these numbers won't even register. Number 14. Space Dock, Earth Orbital Station, 3,800 meters wide, 6,000 meters tall. Space Dock first appears in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, as the primary orbital facility in Earth's orbit. It is approximately 3.8 kilometers wide and around 6 kilometers tall, roughly 2/3 the height of Mount Everest from sea level. The station functions as a repair, resupply, and dry dock facility, capable of housing multiple starships simultaneously inside its interior bay. One detail the franchise never quite addressed: Space Dock had no weapons. None at all. Which is exactly why Kirk and his crew were able to steal the Enterprise right out of it in broad view with essentially no resistance. The most important station in the Federation, completely unarmed. The same model was reused for various starbases across the franchise, which means that security problem was apparently never solved either. That's the last entry under 10,000 meters. Everything from here gets significantly harder to visualize. 13. Dominion Dreadnought, 5,000 meters long. The Dominion Dreadnought is the flagship heavy warship of the Dominion fleet and the preferred weapon of both the Dominion and the Trueway Alliance. It was developed in 2374 and deployed during the Dominion War, measuring approximately 5,000 meters in length and 4,300 meters wide. At the time of its introduction, it was larger and more heavily armed than anything in Starfleet's inventory. At least 2 dreadnoughts were lost in the Bajoran wormhole during the war. A third was constructed directly in the Alpha Quadrant. The firepower of a single dreadnought was enough to completely change the strategic picture in any battle it appeared in. The next entry is almost twice as long, and it isn't a warship, it's something stranger. Number 12. Voth City Ship, 5,000 to 11,000 meters long. The Voth City Ship is one of the largest vessels to appear in Star Trek Voyager. It measures somewhere between 5,000 and 11,000 meters in length, with internal space large enough to house hundreds of thousands to potentially millions of individuals. Here's what makes it unusual. The Voth are descendants of hadrosaur dinosaurs that evolved on Earth and left the planet approximately 65 million years ago, long before humans existed. They reached the Delta Quadrant and built one of the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy. Their city ship is the product of 65 million years of uninterrupted technological development. When it captured the USS Voyager in 2373, it did not fire a single shot. It simply drew Voyager directly into its core. A ship that size does not need weapons. It is transwarp capable and functions as the permanent mobile home of the entire Voth people. No homeworld, no ground, just this single vessel moving through space. The next ship on the list didn't start as one ship at all, and that detail changes everything about what it actually is. Number 11. Varro Generational Ship, 9,230 meters long. The Varro ship did not begin as a single vessel. It started as a fleet of smaller ships on a long-range mission across the galaxy. Over the course of 4 centuries, those ships physically merged together, hull joining hull, combining populations and resources into one continuous structure. The resulting vessel is roughly 9,230 meters long and has existed in this merged form for approximately 400 years. By the time Voyager encounters it, the ship has long since lost the ability to travel at warp. Its population has split into factions. Sections of the hull are being deliberately sabotaged by those who want the ship broken apart. A vessel that spent 400 years becoming one thing and is now being torn apart from the inside by everyone who remembers being something else. Next is a ship that shouldn't have been anywhere near the 23rd century, but it was. And because it was, nothing in Star Trek was ever the same. Number 10. Narada, Romulan mining vessel, 9,368 meters long. The Narada was a Romulan mining vessel, not a warship, a civilian ship built for extracting ore. By the standards of its own era, it was unremarkable. Then it fell through a black hole and emerged in the year 2233, more than a century in the past, and everything changed. The Narada had been retrofitted with Borg-enhanced technology, which meant the weapons it carried were far more advanced than anything the 23rd century had ever seen. It destroyed the USS Kelvin in its first engagement. It decimated a fleet of Starfleet's finest ships above Vulcan without meaningful resistance. It drilled through a planet's crust like it was routine. One mining vessel, estimated at 9,368 meters in length, arriving in the wrong century. That was enough to split the entire Star Trek timeline into two separate realities, and every film in the Kelvin timeline exists because of that single moment. The next ship is bigger, and it gets its power from something that should never have been turned into a reactor. Number 9. ISS Karen, Mirror Universe Imperial Flagship, 9,600 meters long. The ISS Karen served as the flagship of the Imperial Starfleet in the Mirror Universe and the personal vessel of Emperor Georgiou. It is estimated at approximately 9,600 meters in length, more than 3 times the size of a standard Borg cube. What powered it is the concerning part. The Karen ran on a supermycelial reactor, a glowing ball of mycelial energy visible at the center of the hull. The mycelial network is the subspace layer that connects all living organisms across the entire universe. The Karen was burning it as fuel. The USS Discovery crew eventually determined that the reactor was actively destroying the network itself and destroyed the Karen to stop it. The most powerful ship in the Mirror Universe, running on the foundation of all life. And someone thought that was an acceptable trade. We're now past 9,000 meters. The next entry jumps to 18,000, and it's a station the Federation built to resupply its ships, not a weapon. Infrastructure. Number 8. Starbase 74, Federation Orbital Station, 18,000 meters long. Starbase 74 is a Federation starbase in orbit of the planet Tarsus 3. It appears in Star Trek The Next Generation and functions as a standard repair and resupply facility for Starfleet vessels in its region of space. The station is approximately 18,000 meters long and 12,500 meters in diameter. The Enterprise D visited it for maintenance and system upgrades, during which the Binars quietly exploited the access to steal the ship's computer systems. A station this large becomes invisible because of how routine it is. Ships come and go constantly. Nothing feels out of place, which is exactly why it was vulnerable. At 18,000 meters, this is the Federation's logistics infrastructure, not its most dangerous structure, not even close. The next entry wasn't built by the Federation at all, and nobody knows who actually built it. Number 7. Delphic Expanse Spheres, 19,000 meters each. The Delphic Expanse Spheres were a series of artificially constructed objects scattered throughout the Delphic Expanse, the dangerous region of space explored in Star Trek Enterprise Season 3. Each sphere measured approximately 19,000 meters in diameter. They were not ships. They were generators, each one producing massive amounts of gravimetric energy. Together, they maintained the entire web of spatial anomalies that made the expanse nearly impossible to navigate. Each sphere was concealed behind its own cloaking barrier, invisible to outside observers. They were built by the Sphere Builders, a trans-dimensional species operating from a future timeline, to slowly reshape the expanse for their own habitation. The entire region was a construction site, and no one in the present knew it was happening. The crew of the NX-01 eventually destroyed enough spheres to collapse the network. But consider what it took to build them in the first place. Dozens of 19,000-meter generators, seated across an entire region of space, cloaked, and left to run. That's the scale of patience required to reshape a corner of the galaxy. The next entry is larger, and it houses millions of living people. And it was attacked specifically because of that. Number 6. Yorktown Station, Kelvin Timeline, 25,000 meters in diameter. Yorktown is a Federation starbase near the Necro Cloud Nebula in the alternate Kelvin timeline. As of 2263, it was Starfleet's newest and most advanced installation. approximately 25,000 meters in diameter, housing millions of people inside a large transparent globe with its own internal atmosphere. Buildings, parks, transit networks, and support facilities extended in every direction relative to local gravity. Constitution-class vessels docked inside its bays. In Star Trek Beyond, Krall targets Yorktown specifically because of its population density. The more people gathered in one place, the more devastating the attack. Yorktown's greatest achievement, millions of people living together in one impossible structure, was also the exact vulnerability used against it. That's 25,000 meters. The next entry is 73,500 meters in diameter, and it came from somewhere nobody has ever been able to identify. Number 5. Whale Probe. Unknown origin, 73,500 meters in diameter. In 2286, an object of completely unknown origin entered the Sol system on a direct heading for Earth. It is estimated at approximately 73,500 meters in diameter. The probe was transmitting a signal powerful enough to neutralize every energy source in its path. Starships went dark, starbases went offline, and Earth's planetary systems began shutting down. It wasn't trying to destroy anything. It was trying to talk, specifically to humpback whales, a species it had apparently communicated with in the distant past. When it arrived and found them gone, extinct, the probe began disrupting the oceans. Kirk solved it by traveling back in time to 1986 San Francisco to retrieve 2 living humpback whales, which raises an obvious question that Star Trek IV politely asks you not to think too hard about. If Starfleet could always time travel, why didn't they use it to stop Khan? According to the novels, the probe was built by an ocean-dwelling civilization 500,000 years ago. The Borg encountered it at some point and attempted to assimilate it. They failed. The Borg, who assimilate everything, could not touch this probe. Keep that in mind when we get to the entry where the Borg are the ones building something. Number 4. V'ger. Machine entity, 97,500 meters long. V'ger is the largest individual machine entity the Federation ever encountered. At approximately 97,500 meters in length, it appeared on a direct heading for Earth at a sustained warp factor 7, surrounded by an energy cloud so enormous that initial scans suggested the cloud itself was the phenomenon. Inside the cloud was a machine. Inside the machine was something that had started as a 20th century NASA probe. Voyager 6 was launched from Earth, lost in a black hole, and recovered on the far side by a planet of living machines. Those machines did exactly what machines do. They followed the probe's programming. They enhanced it, upgraded it, cataloged everything it encountered across centuries of travel, and sent it back to find its creator. By the time it reached Earth, V'ger had learned everything there was to know about the physical universe, every particle of matter, every measurable phenomenon. It had become, by any reasonable definition, conscious, and it had one question it could not answer on its own. It merged with the human navigator Decker to form a new type of life and departed known space. The thing humanity built and sent out into the dark, grown beyond recognition, came home, and then left again as something neither human nor machine. At 97,500 meters, V'ger is the last entry that can be measured in meters. Everything from here exists at a different scale entirely. Number 3. Borg Transwarp Hub, Galactic Infrastructure. Right now, at this exact moment, if the Borg decided to move on Earth, Starfleet would have 16 minutes to respond. Not hours, not days, 16 minutes. That is what a transwarp hub makes possible. A transwarp hub is not a vessel. It is a fixed node in the Borg's network of transwarp corridors, infrastructure that allowed Borg forces to travel anywhere in the galaxy in minutes. There were 6 of these structures distributed across the galaxy. 6. And each one made the entire concept of distance irrelevant. Any civilization operating at conventional warp was, from the Borg's perspective, standing still. The moment the Borg decided to move, the response time available to Starfleet was not measured in days or hours. It was measured in the time it took to open a conduit. In Voyager's series finale, Admiral Janeway traveled back in time specifically to destroy one hub. Not the Queen, not the Unimatrix, just one. Because eliminating even a single node was enough to collapse a major portion of the network and buy the galaxy years of breathing room. 6 structures, no weapons needed. The ability to be anywhere, at any moment, was the weapon. The next entry is where the Borg actually live, and it is not a ship. Number 2. Borg Unicomplex, Unimatrix One, several hundred kilometers in diameter. The Borg Unicomplex, also called Unimatrix One, is the central command installation of the entire Borg collective and the location of the Borg Queen's primary nexus. It measures at least several hundred kilometers across, an interconnected lattice of structures that functions as the cognitive capital of a hive mind spanning the galaxy. Every directive the Borg has ever issued originated here. Every assimilation campaign, every tactical response to every threat, anywhere, at any time. Approaching Unimatrix One with hostile intent was not attacking a ship. It was walking directly into the thinking center of a mind containing billions of drones, with the full processing capacity of the collective already aware of you, already calculating, already responding before you arrived. Voyager's crew attempted exactly that, more than once, several hundred kilometers. The command architecture of an empire built on the assimilation of civilizations, and it is still not the largest thing on this list. The tone shifts here. What follows is not a ship, it is not an empire, it is something older and quieter and far more difficult to comprehend. The Borg built Unimatrix One to conquer the living galaxy, but an unknown ancient civilization built something that conquered space itself, and then they disappeared, without leaving a single word of explanation. Number 1. Dyson Sphere. Unknown builders, 200 million kilometers in diameter. 200 million kilometers in diameter. The average distance from Earth to the Sun is approximately 150 million kilometers. The Dyson Sphere is wider than Earth's entire orbit around that sun. This structure does not fit on the same scale as everything else on this list. This is why every previous video on this subject excluded it from the comparison entirely. Not as an editorial choice, as a mathematical necessity. It was built to enclose a living star, completely. Every photon the star produces, every particle of solar wind, all of it captured, none of it wasted. Its inner surface area is 250 million times the surface area of Earth. Let that number sit with you. Its enclosed volume is 4.19 times 10 to the power of 24 cubic kilometers. Even at just 1 kilometer of material thickness, the shell alone would have a solid volume 116,000 times larger than the entire Earth. Building it required consuming the raw material of tens of thousands of planets. The engineering demands, managing gravitational stress across a structure this size, maintaining symmetry while constructing around a live star, sourcing material on a scale no known civilization ever attempted, would have exceeded the capabilities of even the Federation's greatest scientific minds, centuries into their own future. This was not an ambitious project. This was a civilization operating at a level of technological mastery that has no name in any Starfleet database. And when the Enterprise D found it, it was empty, not destroyed, not abandoned in haste, simply empty. The star was still burning inside. The surface structures were intact. The tractor beam emitters still functioned. Montgomery Scott had been suspended inside a transporter buffer within the sphere for 75 years before the Enterprise arrived. He was the only living thing they found. No distress signal, no final record, no bodies, no message left behind for whoever came next. Just the structure and the silence. A civilization that consumed tens of thousands of planets to build this thing simply ceased to exist. They left no explanation, no warning, no trace of what happened or where they went. The star they enclosed is still burning. It will burn for billions of years, and no one who built this will ever see it. That is the Dyson Sphere. Not the largest weapon, not the largest warship, the largest act of civilization ever recorded in the Star Trek universe, built by someone who believed they had a future. They were wrong. Everything on this list was built by someone who believed the same thing. The Borg, the Sphere Builders, the Federation. Every ship, every station, every hub and unicomplex and generational vessel, all of them built on the assumption that the builders would survive to use what they made. The Dyson Sphere is the only one that proves that assumption false. It is still there, waiting. It will be there long after the Borg are gone, long after the Federation is a memory, long after every other entry on this list has turned to dust. The silence inside it is the loudest thing in Star Trek,